Hello there. Hi, my name is Kate, and I'm here to talk about skills sustainability. I've been in English language teaching for 15 years, and I've been thinking about my whole experience in the past couple of days. So think back to your English language classroom 5 years ago and 10 years ago, if you were already teaching back then. How was it different? When you had to play an audio, did you use the same tools? Did you use a computer, an MP3 player, a tape recorder? Though that was probably long ago. Did you have to teach online 5 years ago and 10 years ago? Most probably not. And a lot has changed, right? One very obvious thing is that because of COVID, we all had to learn how to use tools for teaching online. And let's think about our students. Let's take, for example, those 385,000 children who are born to this world every day. Can we actually confidently say that when the time comes for them to start school, learning will look the same as it does today, and that we as teachers will need the same skills? When we teach our students, is what we're teaching actually relevant to them now? And is it going to be relevant to them later in life? So if we think about all those who are born these days, in the year 2050, they will be aged 27. And in the year 2100, they will be 77. And of course, 80 years is a long time to be planning ahead. And it's a little bit too ambitious to be planning so much ahead. But if all goes well, and I'm confident that with the recent developments in technology and medicine and everything, those children will be active citizens of the 22nd century. And that's amazing. But again, how can we prepare them for the life then? And can we actually do this in our English language classroom? Back in 1928, nobody was planning for Alexander Fleming to invent penicillin. Well, it happened and it changed our lives completely. And then nobody was expecting the invention of the computer. And yet this thing also happened and it changed the way the world works these days. Back, say, in the 11th century, parents were teaching their children some common things such as agriculture, how to cultivate rice, how to make silk, for example. Those families which were more well off were teaching their kids to read and appreciate literature, the martial arts, and nobody had any doubts that those skills would be needed. Today, when in our English language classroom, we're teaching our kids to read newspapers, not kids, adults even, when we're teaching them to read newspapers, is this something they're actually going to need in 5 years' time or 10 years' time? 100 years ago, nobody knew we would have penicillin, but people definitely knew some things about this world. They knew they would have to work. They knew they would be eating the same meat and vegetables, and they probably knew that their hands and arms would look about the same. Think about the year 2100. We don't know. I don't know, because with the developments in technology, robots are replacing us and we might not have to work. With the developments in medicine, we don't know what our hands and arms will look like, and especially because there's 3D printing now and artificial body parts, things may change. So if you think about it, the world is changing and undergoing unprecedented transformations. And if someone tells you that in 100 years, we'll be flying instead of driving cars, and we won't need teachers or translators because there will be microchips in our heads, don't believe them. They're probably wrong. However, if somebody tells you that the world will not look like this in 2100, they are even more wrong, or even wronger, because we don't even know what the correct word will be. And those are the little things that I find myself thinking about more and more when I teach my students in an English language classroom. Think about course books. When a book writer sits down and starts to think about a course book and plan it, it's already a bit outdated. Like, imagine they mention an iPad or an iPhone in a text. And by the time this book gets published, and it takes about a year and a half probably for a book to get published and advertised and sold, this iPad is already outdated. And what's more important, people might not even need books because they will be using iPads for learning or something else. I hope, of course, this won't happen, but the truth is that things around us get outdated so fast that we need to adapt what we're doing and make sure that we're teaching our students skills that are transferable. Sounds a bit depressing. Now, I'll make it a bit more depressing, and then I'll fix that. If, let's say, in the year 1100, one knew how to make a chair out of a pile of wooden planks, they probably had a job for life. And these days, if someone knows how to make a chair from a pile of wooden planks, they probably have a job for about 5 years. I know a chair is a chair, but the world is developing, and what's fashionable today will not be fashionable in 5 years' time. And what I mean is a carpenter will still be a carpenter and the teacher will still be a teacher. But if they don't do anything to develop as a professional, in 5 years' time, they will most likely have fewer and fewer clients and making less money, and it will be more difficult to live. But if we constantly develop and look for trends in materials and fashion, we continue to be successful, which brings me to one very important aspect of skills, which I will be talking about at length in my webinar this coming Friday. So if that sounds interesting, go to macmillanenglish.com and register now. And the topic and the aspect I'm talking about is skills durability. These days, it's not fashionable to talk about soft skills and hard skills any longer. It's more fashionable to talk about perishable and durable skills. And durable skills are more self-explanatory. There are skills which last for a longer time, and we will need them in the future. Whereas perishable skills are those that are relevant for a certain amount of time, and often in specific context or organization. They are not the skills you can use for the rest of your life. Skills like programming and web design are examples of perishable skills. And like specific technology like blockchain, which is important and popular now, or artificial intelligence, they are also perishable skills because they're growing and developing, and they will change. And this term was first used in the 1990s by a futurist, Alvin Toffler, in his book, The Third Wave, in which he talks about the skills that society doesn't need any longer. It's not relevant and has been replaced by innovation or technology. And this term has now been accepted in a lot of companies and workplaces, as perishable skills are very easily forgotten. They get outdated. A classic example would be using typewriters. Like when I was a kid, when I was growing up, my mom had one, and I really wanted to learn to use it. And I thought, well, I should. When I have kids, I will no longer teach them to use a typewriter. In fact, I don't need it now, obviously. I will probably teach my kids to type fast on an iPhone or an iPad, and that's what I think now. I don't know what it will be like in the future. What we really need to teach our kids are the durable skills, which are things such as communication skills, leadership skills, the ability for lifelong learning and stuff like that. Basically, skills are divided into three big categories: perishable skills, which last for less than 2.5 years, semi-durable skills, which last for about 7 years, and those which are durable and they last for more than 7 years. The fancy word soft skills. Soft skills belong to durable skills, for example. And in order to prepare our students for the future, it's important to determine which skills and competencies fall into the category of perishable, durable, and semi-durable skill, and plan a syllabus which is balanced, which includes examples of both. And in my webinar this coming Friday, I will talk about those skills and their specific examples, and I also talk about how we can develop them in an English language classroom, because very often it goes beyond teaching grammar and vocabulary and things. But I'll give you a quick example from an English language classroom and skills that are specific to language learning. So when I just started my teaching career over 15 years ago, one of my favorite lessons to teach was one on newspapers. And I would bring my newspaper into my classroom and get learners to flick through and choose an article on the topic of transport. And these days I don't do it, of course, because they rarely read paper newspapers. I'd ask them to open a news website, navigate through the website, find an article they would want to read. And both of those are examples of skills which we need to think about. And reading a newspaper is probably a perishable skill, and reading a newspaper and news website is also a perishable skill, because who knows what those things will look like in 5 years' time. But an example of a durable skill here is looking at a text, looking at a picture which goes together with this text, and looking at a heading or a subheading and identifying the topic. Because this, I don't think it will change soon, because this is how a good text works. Now, there's a more or less official list of things which belong to more durable and more perishable skills. And according to Chief Learning Officer Journal, which is mainly for workplaces, soft skills are the ones that are more durable and, funnily enough, are more difficult to obtain. They're critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration. And luckily, we do a lot of that in our English language classroom. So join me for my webinar this Friday to learn more about how to decide whether a skill is durable or not, whether it's perishable, and how to find the right balance between those universal techniques for developing them. Register, go to macmillanenglish.com, find the webinar this Friday, and join me. Thank you very much.